It's back. He hits two back. He's done it. Sharma has done it. India delirious.
Hello and welcome to The Last Wicket, a cricket podcast that is all about good intent and perfect anchors. I'm your host, Benny, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mayank.
Hey, everyone.
Nish.
Hello, everyone.
And Himanish.
Hi, guys.
And today, we will be speaking with a man who wears several hats, Aatif Nawaz. We talked to him about his juggling acts as a television presenter and comedic performer, his thoughts on the cricketing rivalry between India and Pakistan, the PSL setback, his expectations from Pakistan's tour of South Africa, and much, much more. But first, I want to check in with the rest of the Last Wicket team about the recently concluded ODI series between India and England. It was a very dramatic finish to what has actually been a very dramatic tour. Let me get Himanish's thoughts first, just about what do you feel about the way the series went on, and what do you feel about India's performance?
I think very good series, very entertaining. The third ODI was obviously, I don't like ODIs too much, but this one really showcased what a good ODI should look like, because there's a range of possibilities going into the 35th, 40th over. So it was quite good. From India's perspective, I think they found some answers, but they found some questions as well. They finally found a middle order combination. So after the retirement of Yuvraj and Raina, they've been sort of confused about what brand of cricket they want to play in that middle order. And with Dhoni waning, they were sort of conservative, which is sort of out of step with how the world is going right now in white ball cricket. But I think Pant has finally found his groove. He looks very settled. His shots are shapely. He is hitting them on the offside as well. So he's found his sort of place in that order, and he's made it his own. And with Pant and Rahul settled at 4-5, 5-4, and then the Pandya brothers there, I think India should stick with this middle order and keep going in terms of hitting the ball hard. In terms of the questions for them, I think the spin is a big question. Because Kuldeep Yadav has sort of lost his confidence, it looks like. He's been worked out by most teams. So that plan of India's, which involved throwing a couple of wrist spinners in the middle overs and controlling them, isn't working anymore. So they'll have to look for an alternative option to that. That being said, Bhuvneshwar Kumar coming back into form was magnificent. His control was great. He was getting the ball to curl a little bit, and it was beautiful to watch. So I think Bhuvneshwar and Bumrah in the pace attack should be a very good lethal long-term option for India now, with the white ball at least, and the middle order is settled. Now they have to look for what Shardul does. I'm not still sold on him completely, but yeah, they still have to look for what Shardul does. If he can bowl well, he lends a lot of balance to the batting order, because he can bat at 7/8 and then deepen the batting order, which means they can go harder. So yeah, a fascinating series from a long-term perspective as well for India. In terms of how England did, I think they should be questioning themselves, because they've lost a lot to India, and they have this one-dimensional approach, which is very good. It mostly works. But what happens when the ball sort of moves and does a few things? Does their approach hold up? It doesn't hold up that well. So they have to kind of think about that. Fascinating to watch.
Your point about Rishabh Pant's shapely batting. I've seen the highlight. I didn't really watch any of these games live, but I watched the highlights. So I don't understand how his body moves for some of his shots, like especially in the third ODI, like that. Was it a 6 or a 4? Like his body was bent in a weird manner, and still he managed to get the ball to the boundary. So I'm glad that he has not shelved his unorthodox style. You know, it's very easy when you're overcoached, both at the IPL level or the international level, for that to be suppressed, right? Like, and then it's very textbook coaching. So I'm glad that he stuck to it, and glad for the entertainment. Mayank, what did you think?
I can't go past you saying I was looking at how his body moves. That definitely caught my attention. But
Got mine
other
too.
than that, I think. But I think other than that, Himanish sort of hit the nail on the head. You know, I think the question mark for India, both in T20s and ODIs, really is their spin combination. They've had two very, very successful spinners in Chahal and Kuldeep, and both seem to be Kuldeep in particular seems to be down on confidence and getting picked quite easily. Chahal still is getting mixed results. So I think that's really the only puzzle that they need to solve. And with Jadeja back, that number 7 spot will go back to him likely, and he'll be even better than Krunal in my mind. So all in all, I think it's a pretty good lineup. They've been pretty consistent, and I wrote about this as well. And I mentioned that I genuinely think that it's a very good all-rounded side which can succeed in pretty much all conditions, and that's sort of different from England, who have sort of a one-way approach. And you'll notice that in all the World Cups that have happened in the last decade, the average scores have been actually much lower than the ODIs in that country before. So you think about 2011 India, 2015 Australia, 2019 England. So that again will come into play in 2023, and I don't really understand why that's the case. Maybe it's just how they have some ruling around World Cup pitches. Maybe it's just pitches being
It's
used on
also
multiple times.
home advantage, right? Because if you look at the ODIs
Right.
that are played in bilateral series, the same team plays them, and they have a home
Right.
advantage and they know their conditions well. But in a World Cup, you have multiple teams playing, so the average sort of
Right.
gets down.
No, absolutely. That definitely plays a factor. But I guess my point being, England definitely have a very solid team, but it's a result of sort of the hard-hitting all-rounders that they have, that they're comfortable going with this approach. And obviously, they have a very solid top 3, top 4. But they'll definitely be in trouble if there's some movement and things like that. We've already seen the in-swinger trouble, both their openers. It's trouble Josh Butler as well. So for them, that'll be probably the only question if they want to continue with that. They seem to have the results for it, so I don't necessarily think that they'll change it. But yeah, from India's perspective, spin is probably the only question right now.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's time to go back to Ashwin, and I mean Jadeja is already there in the mix, but I'm wondering if it's time to go back to Ashwin, because if Kuldeep and even Chao doesn't seem to be in the best of form from what I'm seeing, at least his performance in the T20s. So I'm wondering if they want to go back to the security of a proven performer like Ashwin. What do you think, Mayank?
I personally don't think so. And the reason for that is, in my mind, there needs to be 4 bowlers who are taking wickets. And with Bhuvi and Bumrah, those 2 are covered. Then, we need 2 spinners, or ideally maybe, Natarajan can be the 3rd person, Shami can be the 3rd person, and then we need 1 spinner who takes a lot of wickets. And Ashwin and Jadeja have been playing very similar sort of limited overs cricket, where they try to keep the runs down. They don't pick as many wickets. And that definitely was the case until 2017 Champions Trophy, when India decided to change their tactic. So in my mind, Ashwin is not good enough to play as the all-rounder, because his batting is not as good as somebody like Jadeja or Krunal. And he's not good enough to play as a plain bowler ahead of even Chahal, for that matter, even when Chahal is not at his peak.
Nish, what did you make of England's performance? I mean, they came in with this expectation that, that's defending World Cup champions, and the way they've been playing in recent times, I personally thought that they should have won this series. What did you make of their performance?
Yeah, I just want to start off with saying that my boy Sam Curran is back in form for CSK, so that's really good to see. But all jokes aside, I think you're right, Penny. England should have won the series fairly comfortably, especially the way they attacked us in the first game. Then the mighty collapse happened, and the second game they kind of bludgeoned us. The third game also they came very close. The series was very exciting, and from an England perspective, without Morgan and Archer for a couple of games, they still competed and pushed us to the brink, which kind of shows and supports their number 1 ranking today. Plenty of positives for India as well. Despite Sharma having a quiet series, our middle order kind of took up the challenge, and good to see Rahul back in form as well. I'm just a little concerned by what Himanish and Mayank set up with the spin department. We're still lagging there, and Kuldeep's confidence of his body language from last game did not look good at all. But then again, he's facing Bairstow and Stokes in that form. Not many can, say that it's whatever, just brush it aside and move on. It's hard work bowling to those guys in that fiery form. But overall, I think this series was one of the most entertaining 3-match ODI series I've seen in a while, actually. So it's good. It's good.
And what is your guys' pick for the performance of the series? We'll start with Himanish. Who do you think impressed you the most from both sides, from either side?
Well, Bairstow for sure. I can't make sense of all the 3 matches. Bairstow did well. Bhuvneshwar did very well. And I think in the middle order, Pant and Hardik both contributed. So yeah, quite a bunch of performance people there. But yeah, so if I were to pick one person, it would probably be Bhuvneshwar, because Shardul, again, I think he got a lot of his wickets through flukes. He did contribute all round, and I'm very happy as a CSK fan coming up. He's in form, but yeah, I'm not sold on him yet. So yeah, Bhuvneshwar would have been the pick for me.
What about you, Nish?
Yeah, literally have to piggyback here what Himanish said. When considering the overall run rate was 6.3, 6.5, Bhuvaneshwar was very economical, and he was economical by taking wickets, which is the best way to be economical, right? So yeah, definitely Bhuvaneshwar was a standout for me. A second would be, if I want to throw someone from England, yeah, Johnny Bairstow. Despite having a poor couple of test matches, he kind of redeemed himself in his favorite format. So it's good to see him back and forth.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bhuvi should have been man of the series in my mind. But I think the second person that comes to mind from the Indian perspective is Pant, because he's obviously established himself in tests in the last 3-4 months, but hadn't had that chance in ODIs. Don't believe he was picked. Maybe apart from one series, he wasn't picked after the 2019 World Cup. So that way, it was really good to see him in the runs, and I think it's just confidence and the backing that he's getting right now that's helping him. From England's perspective, Sam Curran was really good. I felt like obviously Bairstow was good, but sort of expected that from him in the one-day format. And I think Sam Curran was like somebody who we've seen in the Test series frustrate us in 2018. So it was good to see him also do well in ODIs. Well, not really good to see him, but I guess from CSK fans that I'm sitting with, I guess good that way.
Honestly, overall, I agree with everyone. The names that you came up with, Bhuvaneshwar and Rishabh Pant. Let me just say, when I was watching Sam Curran bat, the third game, like leading the chase, I was torn for the first time, right? When there's an India game, I'm like, I want Sam Curran to do well. I want him to score a century and get close, but I want India to win. So I'm glad I got both those wishes. And I feel like, like you mentioned, from a CSK fan perspective, I am so happy that because someone had mentioned, like, for someone who's still relatively new in international cricket, his maturity, right? Like the way he assesses the match situation and the confidence with which he could pace his innings. He kind of took a gamble, deciding not to take like singles when he was batting with Mark Wood, but it shows he's a thinking cricketer. It shows that he had a plan in mind. And I said, it's from the Dhoni school, so I'm expecting great things from him this IPL. Nish?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Benny. Sam Curran was he wasn't all bludgeoned, right? It was very calculated assault on us. And also what kind of pissed me off was, this may be a little petty, but Gavaskar was like, when the game was still widely open, he was like, oh yeah, this is India's game to lose. We have like 9 fingers on the trophy. I was like, calm down. There's still people can bat till number 10 for England. So that was kind of like a thing that irked me. But yeah, good to see you, Karan.
The one other thing which I don't know how many people have realized is now that the ODI Super League is started, every series, only the first 3 ODIs will be counted and towards that qualification. So even if they play 5 ODIs, only the first 3 will be counted. And I don't know if a lot of people have realized that.
I didn't know that either.
I don't even think, so I don't think they did they did any announcements of that on the commentary. And I usually listen on mute. So maybe
I doubt they know that either.
They don't know that. I don't think anyone cares about this Super League thing. It's very shabbily.
It counts towards the World Cup qualification, but the host, it doesn't apply to the host. They're fine, regardless of how they.
Yeah, but the thing is that for the top 5-6 teams, it's very hard to not qualify. Like, you'll have to screw up royally over 3 years to not qualify.
Honestly,
so it's ultimately a farce, and it's important for the last 2-3 teams.
Right, like Sri Lanka, West Indies, and I don't know, probably Bangladesh.
Right, but again, having said that, at least it's a step towards making these bilateral series have some context. Like, it may not be a perfect way to do it, and you're right. I mean, there's probably not going to be a chance that Australia, England, New Zealand, India are going to be in trouble because of that. But it's still important for, let's say an India Sri Lanka series, because Sri Lanka care about it. So
Right.
I think it still gives certain context, and I think it's important. It's a step in the right direction. May not be a perfect move.
Well, it was overall it was a very entertaining series for fans, and we're always grateful for that in a pandemic world. To get any cricket at all is great, but then to get some really good cricket from some top teams, can't ask for anything better. So today we get to speak with an award-winning British Pakistani actor, writer, stand-up comedian, and television presenter. And all of this is one person. So while he's best known for performing comedy shows and television acting, he also has a tremendous passion for cricket. He has hosted a weekly cricket podcast on BBC Radio 5 Live called The Dusra, and he has regularly contributed to BBC's iconic Test Match special program. So you can also catch him sharing his cricket thoughts on the regular at the Post-Match Chat channel on YouTube. Aatif Nawaz, welcome to the Last Wicket podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me, man. I'm really impressed because I didn't tell you any of those things. So you found those all out independently.
I had to do my research. So
I feel very privileged, Benny. Thank you.
Well, Aatif, so I was telling you, a bit offline that we've known each other on and off for over the last 10 years or so. And I'm really glad that I'm finally getting some time to talk with you about a bunch of stuff. But I very quickly wanted to check if you remember this particular incident, because back in 2010, I joined Twitter under the ID TracerBullet007. I don't know if that rings a bell, but this was when you would go on Test Match Sofa. Remember those days? And
I remember those days.
Yeah, so I would tweet a bunch of stuff at Test Match Sofa, and for some reason, people started thinking that it was actually you using the ID TracerBullet007 and tweeting at people. So for a brief moment in time, people thought that I was you. So that's the tenuous connection that you and I have, or that we started out on. I don't know if you remember that, but I'm very glad.
I tell you what, that's a really flattering comparison for me, because I vividly remember Tracer Bullet 007. And I'm really glad, actually, because I thought this whole thing was just a gotcha situation where you were going to take your face off, like in Face Off, and you're actually Ravi Shastri just wearing a mask, right? And you're like, gotcha, Aatif. This is the moment, right? I
that was the plan.
It's really funny, man. And anybody confused me for you, I'd take that as a big compliment.
And guess what? You've gone on to bigger and better things since then. So I think it all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, bigger, I guess so. But I mean, better is a matter of opinion, I suppose. I still love the, Guerrilla Cricket, which is the kind of successor to Test Match Sofa. And I love those Sofa days. They were amazing. And I made sort of lifelong friends and connections out of it. Test Match Special is incredible. And I really feel the privilege of being a part of this show that's been on for like nearly 100 years. And it's great. And I really love it. I don't think of, like, in a weird way, I know sort of hierarchically and in the world of sport, certain things have more gravitas than others. But I actually want to talk about cricket, to be honest with you, man. I'll do that anyway. I'll do that at the dhaba when I'm having my chai, and I'll do it like with people on radio in front of millions of people, whatever,
Which is why, what I wanted to talk to you about, and a good way to kind of segue into it. So back in those days, you would go on and you basically did live commentary during games, literally from a sofa. And now you've done a lot of things since then, including, being a TV presenter, and you mentioned, going on Test Match Special. So that's a pretty big journey, right? From where you started all those years ago. So I just wanted to just hear your thoughts on your career. What has your experience been working as a TV presenter and just like interacting with all these ex-cricketers, or even like with current cricketers for that matter? What has your experience been like, and how do you juggle that with your other roles that you do as a stand-up comedian or actor? How's that experience been like?
It's interesting, man. Like, I feel like I get to live loads of different lives, to be honest with you, because very few of them overlap. And I noticed this, like, when I go on Instagram Live, right, sometimes just to talk to my followers, and I've got, not to brag or anything, but I've got a decent number of followers. But like the minute I start talking about cricket, like half of them disappear immediately, which means there was something else going on in my life that attracted them into my world. To have created all these kind of sequestered communities. I did a TV show called Muslamic, which kind of was predominantly British Asian. I did stand-up comedy, which generally catered to sort of mostly, I guess, middle-class white people in England, right? That's kind of like the audience for festival comedy in England,
Right.
and I've done like, Pakistani or Desi acting stuff, which again has its own specific audience. And then I presented a TV show on living. I actually forget all the things I do now because I've done loads of different things.
Your
very recently,
website your website has a very comprehensive list of stuff that you've been in. So don't worry, we can always include that link so that people can
I
go
should
back
check it out.
and see. Yeah, maybe you need
I
to
should
update some
refresh my
stuff.
memory.
Yes.
I was in a fried chicken shop not too long ago because
Okay.
because that's how this happens. And there was a guy who kind of recognized me. He's like, "Oh man, you're that guy." And sometimes you'll be like, "Okay, he recognizes me from XYZ." I had no idea. It could have been anything. It could be like some web series I was on. It could be like the cricket. It could be like the live cricket thing I did during the World Cup. It could be anything. It genuinely could be. So it's kind of a thrill. It's like playing roulette every time somebody spots you. You're kind of thinking,
Yeah.
what does he know me for? Or is he the police and am I breaking the law? Like, I don't know. I don't know where this attention's coming from. But yeah, it's amazing, man. Like in the sofa days, it was just something I was doing for fun. I was a comedian. That's all I was, a stand-up comic. I tour. I go to different cities on my off nights or off days. I'd come and sit and watch with cricket with these random dudes and just hang out and just chat. And it was a lot of fun. But I never really processed that it could go somewhere,
Right.
I'm really lucky that it did. And there's a few people who helped me get there, but we'll get there, I guess.
Well, which one do you enjoy the most out of all of the things that you do?
To be honest with you, it's stand-up comedy. And maybe it's the fact that I've been sitting in a pandemic for the last 18 months where I've barely been able to gig, right? Like the last proper gig I did was actually on your side of the world in LA, right? Like that just blows my mind. That was where I was last year, February, just before the club started shutting down in England. And then when they reopened in the brief gap, I was busy doing cricket stuff, so I couldn't really get back on stage. And now it's been more than 12 months since I got on stage, and I miss it like crazy. It's my first love, man. To be in a room with people and be able to control how they feel, pretty much, be the reason that they laugh or respond or feel some joy. You feel like, it's like, the only way I can describe it is if you've played the game Sim City. It's when all of your residents are really happy and your economy is going upwards and you don't need to build anything. You're just building things for fun rather than for sustainability. That's the feeling of doing a good stand-up comedy gig. I'm just winning at Sim City, bro. That's why I like playing. That's why I like playing live clubs the most. I can't. Nothing comes close.
Yeah, so I've been watching your stand-up comedy bits and I've been loving them. Now, you use certain stereotypes and you sort of turn them on their head to sort of generate comic effect in your bits. What sort of inspired you to do that first? And how's the reaction been in England and Pakistan among your friends and family and among the British people in general?
Thanks, man. It's very kind of you to say. I mean, I've been very lucky. Like, I try and frame, I'm one of those rare comics who refuses to put too much stuff online, right? So you only kind of see a bit of a routine, and it tends to be like a more kind of commercially, like a more accessible bit of the routine. So, and the truth is, they all happen. All of these things happen. The story where I talk about getting on a train carriage and people walking off because I've got the beard.
I love that one. Yeah.
I make the play on the terrorism thing. Like, that's very kind. It's, it happened. That's a real thing that happened to me. The Bollywood songs thing is a real thing that happened to me. The date with the Jewish girl is a real thing that happened to me. All of these things that people think are stereotypes, like, people forget they become stereotypes because these things happen. But my job as the storyteller is to find the spin on it, the creative ending, the way to frame it that people can't anticipate. And do that most of the time. And I've been very lucky. Like, I've managed to tour these shows across the UK. I get a very mixed audience. And I do kind of adjust my stuff where I'm just to make it more accessible to whomever I'm playing it to a little bit. But I'm lucky, man. I get to go to like different places. Like a couple of years ago, I ended up touring Malta, the country of Malta, like 3 times in the space of 18 months. It's just the most bizarre thing. Like, it's not like a comedy hotbed. Like Michael McIntyre Dave Chappelle doesn't go to Malta that I know of. I ended up in Malta, and I mean, you never know where you're going to find a random audience. And again, in Pakistan, I change it up a little bit as well. Different style. I haven't performed in Pakistan for about 6 years now, so it's been a long time. But even then, like, this is a great fraternity of comics. There's not quite as developed as India. India's got like a very structured scene and loads of great clubs, and I really hope to get to perform there one day. My visa's been pending since 2017, so hopefully any day now. But yeah, it's a really cool thing to do, man. Like you can. The cool thing is about stand-up, you can do anything. You can talk about anything you want, and people, they want to hear it. Like they're on your side. If somebody spends like £20 or £25 on a ticket, or dollars, I don't know, whatever people are spending, Bitcoin. If somebody spends half a Bitcoin on your ticket sales, they want to laugh. They don't want to buy the ticket to have a miserable time. So they're already on your team. You just got to deliver the goods. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, man, to answer your question. Thanks for the nice comments. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. I'll move on to a more serious topic. Growing up in England, how's cricket been a sort of vehicle to connect with your roots? Has it been some sort of a driver of that, growing up in the country with a Pakistani community, talking with them about cricket? Has it been like that for you?
Absolutely, man. Like I loved Pakistani cricket before I knew what Pakistan was. Like before I had a concept of what countries were, and what like the whole thing was. I think I was like 6 years old watching the World Cup final in '92. And I watched a lot of that tournament. I'm just processing the colors of Australia and all these colorful kits. And, Amir Sohail, who's still one of my favorite players. I know he's not always very popular with people, but he's still one of my favorite players because, in my formative cricket years, I watched him score some incredible innings, and it just kind of stayed with me. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes through. Like I work with a lot of England players and England captains recently. I worked with people like Michael Vaughan and Jimmy Anderson and Graham Swan. All these people have represented England at the highest level, are very passionate, very patriotic as well, and in a manner of speaking. They've never taken it personally that I'm a big Pakistan fan, and like if we're watching a game together, I'm always backing Pakistan. I've never felt that. Sometimes you do get this feeling of like, well, you're English, why don't you support England? It's not like a nationalist choice for me. It's just the team that I bonded with, in the same way as someone sitting at the other side of the world in Bangalore might support Manchester United, or somebody in Manchester might support the Brazilian football team. Like it's just one of those things. I connected with Wasim, I connected with Imran Khan and eventually Waqar and all these incredible players. Like even if Pakistan was Bangladesh, I would still be backing them. It has nothing to do with the fact that both my parents were born there. It's just that's what they exposed me to, and that's what I fell in love with. So, and people tend to accept that. Like over time, people will accept that. It's not an arbitrary thing. It's a very believable thing that you'll fall in love with the team.
And I think that resonates with me too, because I was actually born in Saudi Arabia, and I grew up there. And if you're in Saudi Arabia, they're a soccer crazy country, so that's what we all kind of grew up with. And then one day I discovered cricket, and it's funny because living in a foreign country, you get to mix with a lot more people from other countries like Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, Bangladeshis, and cricket was that one common thread for us, and it was a way for us to connect to our roots. And I think a lot of what you said, I'm kind of like taking a trip back to those days where we looked past our boundaries that we had and then could kind of reflect on where we came from. And I think especially now, right, because for us too, like we all live right now in the United States. I'm an American, but I still follow the Indian cricket team very religiously. And I think if India plays, like, let's say the United States of America in cricket, which I don't think will ever happen in a really long time at least.
Well, wait for that USA IPL team, my friend, it's coming.
Oh, God. But no, I would definitely, without any reservation, I would support the Indian team. So that's that constant struggle between where we have come from and where we are. And regardless of whatever has gone on in your life, whatever you have achieved, I think that bond, that root, that will just not go away.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I mean, sports are sports, right? Some people really get intense about it. And, I get really upset when my team loses. Everybody's seen that video of me and Ranveer Singh. Like, people know, I get upset when Pakistan loses. But, ultimately it is a game. It doesn't make me hate the opposing country. Like, I love the Toronto Raptors. Again, I've got no connection with Toronto other than I had a couple of nice gigs there. But I love the Raptors. They're just a team I connect with. But when they lose to like the Lakers, I don't boycott LA or start, it's not on that kind of level for me. Plus, LA's really a beautiful place with a lot of sunshine, and I don't really want to start boycotting that. But it's just one of those things that I think over time, if anybody really loves sport, they'll appreciate your passion for it. And as long as you don't say anything disrespectful and you're mindful of other people's feelings, then you understand that what your emotional stuff is contained within your love for the sport. No one's going to take it personally, man. You support whoever you want to support. Although, having said that, it did break my heart when my nephew became the first person in the history of the Nawaz family, generations and generations. He became the first to support England and wear an England shirt, and that was a very heartbreaking moment for me. I felt like I'd failed as
against
an uncle,
Pakistan.
Against Pakistan, against everybody. Yeah, he hopes to play for England one day. And I for his birthday, I got Jimmy Anderson to like send him a message, and that was like, I could have lined up Wasim, Waqar, Shoaib, Saklan. I could have got the whole the legends of the 90s team together, and it would have been one side for him and Jimmy on the other side. Like, he was just over the moon to get the chance to speak to him. So yeah, I've totally failed as an uncle, but thanks for the shout.
Sign of the times.
Hi, Aatif. It's a pleasure having you here. So kind of staying on the same thread here, right? I was born in India, then I moved to Kuwait in grade 1, and spent my majority of my growing years there, and then I eventually moved to college here, and now here in the sense US, and then I've been living here, right? But during my time in Kuwait, every time I opened the TV, I was constantly fed like, India and Pakistan, are meant to be, like enemies, or, some sort of like a very negative connotation, right? But in Kuwait, I used to play a lot of like table cricket with, Pakistanis and Indians, and same in the US, in college, I played a lot of table cricket with like Pakistanis and Indians. There's a lot of like, bond among the Desi diaspora here, right? So can you kind of like touch on that? How have your experiences been in that regard? And I know you don't perform to an audience and like, I'm going to perform for Pakistanis. That's not how you approach your career, right? But so can you like touch upon that, how you've kind of like faced such a scenario in your career or in your life so far?
In the world of like stand-up comedy specifically?
Sure. In specific, just like a presenter, stand-up comedy and cricket across the board, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, comedy is a beautiful thing, man. Like, it can be anything you want it to be. And so you can approach it like, what's common these days is people do relatable stuff. Like, have you ever noticed that? Or has this ever happened to you? Like that kind of thing, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. Whereas I'm a really self-absorbed, narcissistic person, right? I want to talk about me. So what I want to do is take my experiences and tell them in the most comedic way possible. Now, it just happens that the life I live includes people of all sorts of backgrounds. And I don't know what it is about Indians, but for some reason, most of my life I've gravitated around Indians. I grew up in an area in northwest London called Wembley, which is basically where the Gujarat Lions did their training before the IPL, right? It's just like Gujaratis all over the place. The first thing I ever loved to eat was dhokla. That's just how I was socialized, like you're around all these people, you accommodate everybody. Like, I don't like sequestered groups if I can help it. Like, I don't like the idea of like people a little bit here, I'll drop a bit of Urdu with these people, some Punjabi with these people, Gujarati with these people. And then before you know, you don't really know who you are anymore, right? I'm very comfortable just trying to keep everybody as accessible as possible. And that extends to cricket, man. Very soon I'm going to be commentating on the IPL for the BBC in England. And I get a little bit of negative feedback about this from Pakistan fans. Something like, how can you work on the IPL and, they don't let the Pakistanis play. It's not unfair. We boycott it. We don't even watch it. We certainly don't brag about watching it. I've got a few thoughts on this. And, firstly, at least one Pakistani should get paid for the IPL, and B, I completely accept that it's a very unfair thing that the Pakistanis don't get to play in the IPL. I really hope one day they will again, because I think world cricket will be stronger and more entertaining for it. But I genuinely, despite having that issue with the IPL, I still find it very entertaining. And these are all cricketers I love to watch. I love watching all of these Indian players. I was more thrilled than anybody else when Krunal Pandya got his debut, because I watched him for like 6 years play for Mumbai Indians, right? So I'm following this guy's work, and I get to see these players come through and do their thing. And I feel good about it. So I don't see why I should be detached from that. And usually when you make that kind of point, people, they'll understand. They won't hold it against you. But there is still, and I've noticed this more the more I kind of dip into the diaspora a little bit with Indians and Pakistanis, right? There is still a little bit of us and them going on. And I think if you really pushed people on the us and them, they wouldn't really know where it comes from. They wouldn't be able to pinpoint it to a position of reason. Like, yes, India and Pakistan have had many conflicts and wars and back and forth and all this kind of stuff, but everybody has, right? You go back as far as history, like England, Germany, America. I mean, can you really name one country that doesn't have some kind of issue with another country? It makes for a great marketing tool, but let's understand it for what it is. People are more savvy now. We've got all the information. A lot of people benefit from playing countries off against each other. I like the idea of watching India and Pakistan play more cricket against each other because it's very attractive. And I understand there's loads of dynamics and politics at play, but you should never have to use a political reason to not engage with a team necessarily.
Right.
You know, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, you know, apartheid was a thing, obviously, and South Africa, and some things are quite justified. But specifically in the case of India and Pakistan, it makes me uncomfortable, and I've never let anything be a barrier to me enjoying and watching cricket if I possibly can. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my experience of it, man. Like in stand-up, I just do what I want to do, and hopefully they'll like it. And I'm very lucky that people from all bits and pieces seem to like it. And if they don't have to buy a ticket. It's fine.
Yeah. Thank you, Aatif. Yeah, that's a very good answer. And to your point of us versus them, it's almost like a learned behavior, right? If you like dig deeper, there's no reasoning or there's no like original thought there, right? It's like, oh yeah, you're like segregated in a group. You have to behave this way. You have to say these things, and that's what kind of like trickles down to the generations. But the younger generation, like it's more, we've become more global, and borders are very like artificial these days, right? So it's good. Yeah.
I'm just saying that you realize that there's much more in common between us when you go far away and you mix with people. We have the same language, the same food, the same culture almost. So it's really artificial, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. But some of these, I really worry about the direction we're going in now. A lot of young people in particular are starting to say really problematic things. Like I remember growing up thinking, these things will pass. People will get more progressive. They'll understand the world a little bit more. They'll be more worldly. They'll be less prone to propaganda and nationalism and all this other nonsense stuff. But I still get, like, I'll give you an example. A very close friend of mine got a career advancement situation in the world of entertainment. And so I tweeted him. He's an Indian guy, Hindu Indian guy, and I tweeted saying like, "Congratulations, brother! I'm really proud of you," right? Something like that, and sharing his thing. And I got like a bunch of tweets saying you are Muslim, brother, and he's not your brother. He's Hindu. He's not your brother. Don't call him brother. He can be your friend, but he cannot be your brother. He's not brother. And I'm like, you need to calm the F down, my friend. Like seriously, this geezer's close to me. You don't know what kind of relationship experiences we've shared. I think of him like a brother, and everything else is kind of secondary and tertiary to me. If you're going to use your faith to try and push somebody away, that's your business. But I'm not going to do that. But this is the kind of thing you navigate, because like the internet is this wide open space and you get a little bit of everything, right? So if you put your opinion out there and you develop a bit of a profile, all of a sudden you become a sounding board for everybody's opinion. So people will get in, people will have an opinion about anything. I could talk about my bowel movements on Twitter and people will still find a way to either be outraged or angry. And in that case, you can either just mute till the sun goes down, or, you can block or whatever. But, sometimes you take the bait and you talk to people and you try and reason with them a little bit. And, over time you realize that you just, you might not just you just run out of energy. You say, I know what I want to do. I know I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do my thing. Somebody else will deal with you, bro. I just don't have the energy. I just want to watch the One Day International.
One of the reasons I love stand-up comedy is you can identify with so much, like, when the performer is sharing the story. And one of my favorite stand-up comedians is Hasan Minhaj. And he, whenever he shares his experiences of growing up, I can connect with it. I can identify with it, right? And again, very similar to us who have grown up in environments where we've interacted with people from different countries. We don't really think, oh, you're from this country, so I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm not going to like you. We're still going to be friends. And when you look at social media, that can distort that, because not everyone has had the same experiences. People living only in India or people living only in Pakistan, they haven't had opportunities to interact with people from the other country, because all they have been exposed to so far is the perceptions that they're getting through, media, or all the promos on TV, which always hypes up like India-Pakistan encounters as this life or death situation where it's like a matter of pride for the nation if you win. And I think people are missing out so much because of that. And I think your role there, it's, I don't know if you accept it or not, but as a stand-up comedian, especially in, like in British Asian communities, you're performing to people from Indian origin or Pakistani origin or any other country for that matter. You are being a tool. You're in the nicest way. You're bringing people closer together just by sharing, like, listen, this is happening in my household. This happens in my family. And guess what? I'm pretty sure it's happening in yours too, right? And suddenly the boundaries don't exist anymore. And I don't know how, do you consciously use that in your comedy where you try to bring people closer, even if it's done in a very light way?
You know what, Benny? I'll be honest with you, man. I used to try and think about common experiences and things like that, and try and make it like this unifying experience. And I remember there was something awful that just happened between India and Pakistan. I don't remember exactly what it was because there's a few of them to choose from. But something had happened, and I finished my set with this, like, I did the whole funny thing, and I finished with this kind of like moral thing, like, guys, we got to love each other, we got to be nice to each other. Everybody gave me a round of applause, and we were like, oh, you did great. But part of me felt a little bit annoyed for doing that, not because it wasn't the right thing to say, not because I didn't agree or stand by what I said, but because, like, my job there is to entertain, right? My job is to tell jokes. Like, ultimately, what I really want from my comedy or my set is to be funny. If I can do something good incidentally through it, wonderful. But really, I'm there to showcase a skill or use a skill to entertain people. That's all I really. But I don't really want to battle wars or, try and take up this mission to change people's minds. There was a time when I had that real passion in me. I was really passionate about Islamophobia. So I did a show called Muslims Do It 5 Times a Day, which was all about tackling stereotypes. The idea is, like, there's 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. How can you think they're all the same, bro? They're all there's niches, and then there's niches within niches,
Right.
Like, just when you think, like, the phrase that blows my mind the most is like, oh, so-and-so people, they're all the same. Are they? Because they're never the same, right? I don't know any 2 Indian people that are exactly the same. I don't know any 2 people from the city
Here are
of
good
Delhi
examples right here in this podcast. I think all 4 of us are very different.
I mean, apart from you 2, you're obviously the same because you both had the Middle Eastern thing going on. Like, obviously, apart from you guys, like, nobody is the same. Like, I mean, you can have people who live side by side and have exactly the same experiences over the course of their lifetime. And even they will have niches to their behaviors, their tastes, their habits, their norms, their values, right? So I just think this idea of, like, grouping people and sequestering people into little identity is outdated. I think everybody is a free-flowing world where people change their mind and change their personality every day. It's the Instagram generation, right? Everything expires in 24 hours, right? The Snapchat generation. Everything changes in 24 hours. So everything is disposable, including identity. So I like the idea of keeping it to me, because that's the only thing I understand when I do my stand-up. I talk about my experiences. I've got I was married for a long time, divorced, and I've got this whole new adventure of, like, trying to meet people again after this much time, and that makes for an interesting topic in stand-up, and it doesn't leave a lot of room, sadly, for, like, world peace and ending awful things and things like
Makes
that.
sense.
So yeah, I mean, I'll let the PSAs get people to vaccinate, and I'll just tell the jokes. You know what I mean?
So Aatif, I guess my question is around the PSL. This current edition obviously was suspended, and I read reports about teams flouting the rules and PCB not putting their foot down. It almost made me feel that that's sort of the overall attitude that people in general in India have towards COVID, where they're like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to live my life, and I don't really care about this, which obviously is sad because it's impacting so many people. Do you think it's similar in Pakistan as well?
I guess so, man. Like, it's really hard to say because, like, I'm always really wary of trying to police or morally guide the people in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, whatever, right? Because, like, we're in England and America respectively, right? Like, we don't have a lot to show for COVID. Like, we've actually been hit pretty hard and not behaved in any way that could be considered morally superior, right? As a country. Like, obviously there's people in the States and England, obviously, who have behaved well and made sure that, they've done their best to prevent spreading the disease, but it happens, right? The PSL, I mean, having a little bit of insight in that world, like I've heard of a few instances of things going away from regulations, I guess, people not observing all of the SOPs, the standard operating procedures in Pakistan. But I know it's this disease. I had COVID in December, and you can be as vigilant as you possibly want. You can get it, and it's one of those things. It only takes one person, right? So in a tournament of 300 odd players, like it only takes one person's mistake, and there's all these stakeholders and owners. Like there's little things that you're watching, and you're thinking like, okay, just for the optics of it, guys, maybe we shouldn't have so many people in the crowd. Maybe we should space out the crowd a little bit. Maybe everybody that we show on camera in the crowd should be wearing a mask. Like even if they aren't in real life, like let's try and encourage people to do the right thing. Right, that's the idea. This is why the Pakistani Prime Minister got some critique recently, because he can say, he can reason his photo, but anybody can take that photo and say, well, if the PM's doing it, why can't I do it? Right? You try and set the right kind of precedent. I just think the cricketers failed that. There is this perception in Pakistan as well that particularly the elite classes, they have their own set of behavior or different set of law, different set of consequences, blah 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 blah. And whether that's true or not, that's not for me to say, but I would certainly say they have a responsibility of setting an example and setting a tone, because people watch these people on TV, on the internet. They look to them for subconscious guidance, and if they're flouting the rules, everybody will feel like they can. And I imagine it's the same in India. Again, I couldn't possibly comment. I was really worried about the massive crowds in the first few England-India games, because they said that they were going to have a partial capacity, like a 50% capacity, but they just used half the state. They still put them all. They didn't spread them out over the two bowls. They put everybody in the same bowl. That was, kind of defeats the point of spacing people out. But I honestly, I mean, I don't know. Like, I really hope that, I think there's some cultural things to overcome. You got to remember, countries like India and probably more so Pakistan, they don't have necessarily the same economic ability to support its population in the same way as the USA and the UK can. I'm not an economist, but I'm just guessing it's difficult to extend welfare programs or supplement people if you want them to stay at home. Like if you run like a stall and that's your living, it's hard to say to you, like, you stay home because of this virus, because you stay home, you're going to die of starvation. So, it's a difficult balance, man. But when the PSL was cancelled, I was gutted. I almost empathized with the Freedies comment. I don't know if you guys saw this, where he was like, if one or two people got corona, so what? Play the tournament. We want to watch cricket, And I was like, yeah, so it's not the most responsible thing Shahid Bhai's ever said, but I understand the impulse behind it, which is kind of like, I want to watch cricket. I just want to watch cricket. Just play the cricket. Come on, guys.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, obviously that's, this is all just to be very clear before anybody who listens or however you guys put this out responds to me directly saying you're a responsible person, because I guarantee they will. This is just jokes, right? Obviously, the right thing was done to postpone it. Apparently they managed to get it back on its feet. I hope they take plenty of guidance from the IPL as well, because the IPL is going to happen in between the resumption of the PSL. I think because the IPL has a lot more money to throw at things like precautions, like chaperones or whatever snitches, whatever they've got in their teams, right? They've got like designated team snitches.
Yeah.
So I mean, whatever it is they're doing, I hope the PCB pays attention and implements something similar.
Yeah, I personally think that's you talked about the India-England series as well, and of course the crowd was in there and they were all packed in there, but what I found really shocking was, Saurav Ganguly and Jay Shah, all of these people are in the crowd. They're watching with different people every single game. They're around different people. They're never wearing masks. And I was like, that is really not the precedent to set.
Or they're just wearing it for their chin, which a friend creatively said. It just looks like they're wearing chin diapers, which I think is a pretty accurate description.
What really worried me was the Road World Series, the Road Safety World Series, right? Because that was in Raipur. Like, I don't know what the COVID situation is in Raipur, but I imagine it's not great, because it's not great everywhere in India, right? I mean, you're putting elderly cricketers out there in front of massive crowd. Like, we're talking about Sachin Tendulkar, who's like a national treasure in India, in his 50s now. Why are we risking Tendulkar getting COVID in this random elderly cricket tournament. Like, I'm sorry to people like Chris Tremlett who could break me like a twig. You know, like, I don't mean to call them elderly, but what I mean is, like, there's some cricketers that are over the age of 50 that are, you know, higher risk for COVID, and they're being put in environments where there's massive crowds, very few of whom are being pictured wearing masks. And I get the road safety is a great thing to promote, absolutely. And I think it was actually kind of nice to see a social message attached to a cricket tournament. But in the current world, is that really the social message to push ahead of COVID? Like, is it, you know, kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I was going to make a really inappropriate comment. I don't know if this is an adult friendly thing, but I won't, don't worry. But yeah, it was just a very bizarre choice of campaign to support.
You know, Aatif, I think we have already lost a bunch of listeners, so you can go ahead and make the joke at this point.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. I'm sorry. I probably lost them when you put me on, my man. I'm telling you. I just think it's crazy. Like some of the risks being taken at the moment just seem a little bit unnecessary. That's what I'm going to say, right? I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know, you know, if road safety is that much of an issue in Raipur, that even more people are dying because of poor road safety in Raipur than, you know, like COVID. And in which case, maybe I'm completely wrong and this was very necessary. But if that's not the case, I don't mean to make light of it, by the way, if anybody thinks that's what I'm doing, it's just a byproduct of the topic. I just think it was a weird thing to do, and why are we risking, you know, all these cricketers getting COVID? It's just my opinion.
No, but you highlighted a very important point in current, you know, international cricket, or just in general cricket administration. Is just a new challenge for boards to figure out how to conduct, you know, tournaments in the middle of a pandemic. And, you know, that road safety tournament, I think it's a good example because it serves as a counterpoint to something like the IPL or any other bilateral series that are being organized with so many precautions. Like it or not, it's just what we have to do. And as painful or as inconvenient as it is, you need to do whatever you need to do to conduct it safely for the health and safety of not just the players and the fans, but also everyone else associated with it, umpires, coaches, and the ground staff. You can't just wash your hands off it and say, well, I guess we'll just live with it, and, you know, we'll just go on carrying our life just as we used to before. You cannot defeat a pandemic with just, you know, your willpower. You need a lot more common sense. And I think this actually serves as a good lesson for people. And, you know, going back to the PSL suspension, and I think it's just a good reminder for, you know, especially when we have the IPL and then the T20 World Cup coming up. I think it serves as a good reminder for all the administrators that they need to be on it. They need to be on the ball. They need to make the necessary precautions, because ultimately fans are the ones who are losing out. I can't imagine the disappointment for Pakistani fans in Pakistan who would have loved to see the games, and then the tournament being suspended. That must have caused a lot of disappointment for fans.
It was hugely disappointing. I can't explain to you. The tournament had got off to this perfect start, right? High quality bowling, high quality batting, very entertaining play, new Pakistani players being showcased, international players making everything you want from a T20 franchise tournament. Yes, there was a lot of gratuitous advertising, but thanks to India, we're used to that now, right? I think Pakistan may have gone even further than India, actually.
Another thing we have in common.
Yeah, exactly. We know how to rinse it. We know how to make the money, baby. Let's sponsor everything from stumpings to leg buys. But I was just, there was a moment where David Gower had to add a sponsor's name to a cover drive, which really, I felt like my soul just died when he did that. But, you know, I mean, it's fine. You got used to it. You understand that it's part of the game. Like, it's not ideal, but I'm not gonna, you know, it's not my hill to die on. It's fine. I still get to watch great cricket. And then for it to be taken away the way it was, man, I mean, I know how gutted I was. Like, this was going to be Pakistan's redemption, this huge tournament. It's being in the UK, it was being broadcast on Sky Sports, which is a big mainstream platform. So for the first time ever, a lot of English fans would be engaging with it. Like, Indian cricket in IPL cricket has been readily available in the UK. So everybody can watch it and listen to it on the radio. I mean, we're commentating it on the BBC, right? So the BBC is choosing to put out IPL cricket commentary. That's how popular it is. And the PSL was getting to that point. It was running so smooth. It was going to be, you know, it was going to build up and be the undisputed number 2 league in the world. And this just kind of derailed everything. It was heartbreaking in so many different ways, man. I can't explain to you. But ultimately, it had to stop there. And I think in it ending, hopefully the PCB, the PSL, the stakeholders, whomever is involved with the admin side, the administration of that tournament, will learn a lesson and implement it that will serve them better in the long term.
We can't have you here and not talk about Lahore, right? So, Jinne Lahore nahi vekhya, wo to jamiya hi nahi is something I've heard a lot. And I've loved Lahore from a distance. And it's a sort of a cultural epicenter for North India and Pakistan through history. So you have a documentary about Lahore, right? Which is Postcards from Lahore. So what attracted you to the city and what did you find there when you went there? Because I've always dreamt of going there and I will, inshallah, someday when the borders are more open.
Oh, man.
But yeah, what did you find?
Oh, Manish, I really hope you get a chance to go. Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful places. And I know there's a bias there. But both of my parents were born in Lahore. All 4 of my grandparents were born in Lahore. And as far as they can go back, as far as we can trace our family, they've always been in Lahore in Pakistan. I spent a lot of my youth there. You know, I was in Lahore in 92 when Pakistan won the World Cup in Australia. I was in Lahore in 96 when Lahore hosted the World Cup final, right? I spent an enormous amount of my youth there, but I hadn't been back for a very long time. And I would just be raving about Lahore and Pakistan to my friends here in the UK. And, you know, particularly sort of my English friends or European friends who are just kind of like, Pakistan. Like if it's a holiday I want to go to, I'm looking at Ibiza. I'm looking at like, you know, Milan, Barcelona, maybe Florida, you know, somewhere like, I'm not looking at Lahore, bro. Like that's not on my list. It's not the sexy vacation destination. I was selling it to them like it was. And, you know, one of my best buds in school, a guy called SAvPAK, who ended up co-directing the documentary with me. You know, he was like, well, next time you go there, just show me what it's like. And I was like, oh, you know what? I will. So I got a hold of this 3CCD camera, which at the time was the broadcast resolution. This doc was made nearly 10 years ago now. I took it with me to Lahore and I just started filming things and just filming loads of random bits of Lahore. Like it was initially kind of touristy, like, oh, this is this historical location. This is this historical location. But like I ended up getting into people's lives. I ended up getting into the food, you know, a lot of the local culture, how things had changed in a post 9/11, post-war on terrorism, you know, world where tourism had taken this huge hit in Pakistan. And, you know, Lahore, you know, a lot of these tourist attractions. There's a place called the Shalimar Garden, Shalimar Bagh in Lahore. It's a beautiful place, man. And it was just, there was nobody there when I went. You know, there was nobody there. It was really sad because it's a gorgeous place. And now it's become like this CD makeout spot, you know, for kids to go to because they, you know, nobody's going to be there, right? So that's why they go there. The same for this place, the tomb of Jahangir, which is just outside Lahore. It's called the Maqbara Jahangir in Urdu or Punjabi or whatever. And again, it's a great place. And my father and I still go there every time I go to Lahore. And it was just these gorgeous places, this tomb, all these, you know, with this Mughal architecture. It's extraordinary. And then the food, we, you know, before you, the food, you could do a whole podcast about Lahori food, right? It's extraordinary, Bazaar, even right? For someone with a very, it's extraordinary. Like even for someone with like a weird palate like me, I adore it. So, and obviously I have a lot of family there, but I would encourage everybody that's never been to Lahore, that's able to go once the world is in a safer place, to go and visit Lahore. To if you find my documentary useful, by all means find it online. It's somewhere. But I would encourage you to consult many Pakistani people from Lahore, and they'll tell you. I guarantee you, if you talk to 10 different Pakistani Lahoris, they'll tell you 10 different must-go-to restaurants. You'll say, what's the best restaurant in Lahore? You'll get 10 different answers from 10 different Lahoris because there's so many to choose from, and it's incredibly subjective. And yeah, I'm so passionate about Lahore, bro. I could talk about it all day. Unless you want to talk about the Lahore Qalandars, which is a much shorter discussion topic. They're not very good, but they're my team. What can I do?
Yeah, there's this book by Harun Khalid called Imagining Lahore, which I read, which is a pretty good exploration of its pre-partition history. And yeah, so that got me hooked to Lahore. And my dream is to first visit Pak Tea House and then go to Old Anarkali and sit there and have all the food over there. Yeah, so someday. And I'm similarly passionate about Delhi, so we can chat about that off the air.
Oh man,
we're kind of sister cities, right? That way.
I really want to go to Delhi as well. Again, like just growing up, I've got, like, as I say, I end up gravitating to Indians. I don't know how this is, but again, one of my best friends, Anirudh, So he's in Mumbai, but my other friend Ameya is in Delhi, and they're all kind of like always competing. Aatif, jab tu aayega India, humne idhar Delhi jana hai, nahi Mumbai jana, nahi tu pehle Delhi aayega, phir Mumbai. And they've all got their own inner rivalry as well. Like, you know, they've got their own little stereotypes that they start throwing at each other, and I'm just very uncomfortable with the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, there's so much beauty in that part of the world, and you can only, I guess, refer to the places you've been to. Delhi all day long, I'd love to go. But yeah, if in terms of Lahore, I cannot recommend it enough. There's just so much to do there. I couldn't possibly sell it to you in an answer. Just take my word for it. Just go.
Yeah, I will. At the first chance, I will.
I did have a comment. I'll definitely join both of you guys, though I'm not passionate, or I mean, I'm sorry, take that back. I'm very passionate to, you know, visit Pakistan in general, not specifically Lahore, but I don't share the knowledge that, you know, Himanish brings, but it's not going to stop me whenever the gates open, right? So my brother is a big foodie, and, you know, he always goes to these YouTube channels, and, you know, he recommends me like these bunch of YouTube channels who are like, you know, they go on their own and kind of like collaborate with locals and kind of like, you know, bring the tourism of the lost tourism, so to speak, of Pakistan, you know, back on the forefront of people's mind, right? So that is something that I find really awesome, and I live vicariously through these videos, right? So I just wanted to like bring that up, saying that even if you haven't been to those parts, there are like really amazing people who put the hard yards and go to these different locations, and, you know, for people like me who have never been there, who've only like, you know, lived in the imagination, right? So it's really nice. Just wanted to bring that up.
If I had a chance, if I had like a dream project, I would love to do a tourist. Like I did a documentary, but I'd like to do like a tourist, like one of those, you know, those crappy videos you watch when you're on like an airline, and like, hey, what to do when you're in Milan? Like, make sure you check out the thing and make sure you go here. Like, I want to do that, but I want to do that for Lahore, and obviously not like that. I want to do a good version of it, but I want to do that kind of program for Lahore. I think I'd sell it.
I'd watch it.
Nice.
Well, let's get back to the cricket again. Mike, you had a question about, or you had something about Pakistan's tour of South Africa.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I have a couple of managers who I worked with who, you know, they're Sikhs, so they've visited gurdwaras in Pakistan, and they said, you know, wonderful things like you are saying. So definitely curious. But as Benny's keeping us in check, so we'll talk about the cricket. And so I know, you know, there's been a lot of talk about fitness and all of that, and, you know, Sharjeel Khan has been picked again, and there's been a lot of questions around that. What are your thoughts about that? I know that it seems like a shift from the Mickey Arthur era, where, you know, he was very particular about fitness, to what Misbah's doing right now. Where do you stand on that? And, you know, maybe there's not really one side or one way or the other being, you know, the right answer.
I think Misbah-ul-Haq recently did a press conference, and he addressed this. And I think he kind of nailed it in his answer, which was, you know, we're going by the rules. We're going by the precedents that we've set. If we've said that people who perform in domestic cricket, or people who show potential to contribute to the national team, and, you know, they've had this phase of suspension or isolation from the modern game because of some kind of infraction, if we've accepted that they're going to be allowed back in, then we got to allow them to come back in without prejudice. In terms of fitness, I actually, like, I think having abs is overrated, by the way. First of all, I feel like I have to say this. Having abs is overrated. You know, I know I've got a vested interest in saying this, but I just think, you know, sometimes people can look like they're a bit chunky, but, you know, they're actually, you know, they can be just as athletic and aerodynamic as somebody who's not. And I would argue that Sharjeel, though he wouldn't be my go-to first choice opener for Pakistan, I would argue that the runs that he could contribute with the bat would far outweigh the runs he would cost Pakistan in the field, if any. By the way, I just think people tend to fixate on fitness. I know a player called Samit Patel really well here in England, and ex-England, Nottingham, IPL, PSL, everything, right? I just think it's just so unfair. Like, they've got so much to offer, but people kind of, this is the world, right? We reduce people to caricatures. I think Sharjeel will, if he plays, which it looks like he's going to, I think he'll prove a lot of his doubters wrong and actually do quite well. Though I don't know if he is the long-term solution for Pakistan. That's another discussion. I think the fitness is relative, as long as you can get on the field, make it through 50 overs, not get cramp, not need a runner, not be lumbering, as long as you can chase down the ball, do some relay stuff, throw yourself at point. As long as you can do your job and not be incompetent, let them play.
And how do you feel? What do you feel
Sure.
about? What do you feel about Pakistan's chances overall in the upcoming series?
I think Pakistan will fancy themselves, even though they're going away to South Africa. It's a weaker South Africa team with a lot of their star players going over to India for the IPL. It's still, tough to beat South Africa at home, even with, a weakened side. I don't want to go as far as to call them a second string team, but it's a weakened team for sure. I think Pakistan, with the run of form that they've had, the sequence of performances that they've put through, and of course their recent tour hosting South Africa in Pakistan, I think they'll feel pretty good about their chances. Anything short of, a commanding win
Right.
would be considered a bit of a letdown at this point. I think a lot of people are looking to Babar Azam in this series to press home that batting ranking as well. Like, he's just below Virat Kohli at the moment in the world rankings, but he can overtake him in the series if he puts in a sequence of good performances. And I think the expectation is for him to do that at this point, certainly amongst Pakistan fans. So I would go along with that. I think Pakistan have a pretty good chance of winning this and going into that Zimbabwe series with some momentum, some much needed momentum in that Zimbabwe series.
All right. Well, before we close, again, as a stand-up comedian, you obviously are very observant about things that are going on, not just around you, but in the world. I'm just curious about, what your perspective has been on life during the past year, because it's obviously appended everyone's life. So has that shaped your perspective on life and cricket during the crazy year that we just had?
Man, I genuinely, it's been a year of kind of gratitude for me, because I usually spend most of my time away from home. I'm always like in a hotel in some random city. I'm away from home. I'm always sort of, not publicly, I guess, but I'm always kind of complaining or bemoaning something that I'm missing. I mean, I needed this. Why don't I have this? I really want this. Why don't I get? And like, what I've had the last year is like a full solid year of hanging out with my parents. Which I don't think I've done since I was like a child. So it's been awesome, man, just to spend that much time with my parents. They're both sort of up there in terms of age. So, without being macabre, I don't know how many more opportunities I'll get like this. So in a weird way, it was really nice for me just to be able to spend that time with them, to enjoy the basic things in life. And I say basic things, I mean like Netflix and Deliveroo, right? Like delivered food. So that, some time with your family, your health, all of these things that you take massively for granted. You don't need nightclubs and casinos and huge parties and cricket stadiums to keep you happy. These are all wonderful things, but you don't necessarily need them on a regular basis. What you need is like some good human contact and a little bit of gratitude for all of the blessings that you have in life. And I've really felt that, man. And I'm really, really grateful that I'm so in love with the game of cricket, because it kept me A, occupied, and B, really sane this year. Like, it gave me something to wake up early for, or stay up late for, or whatever, like just watching it and being able to talk about it and have an opinion on it or feel something. There's people that I haven't felt a lot for, not as much as I have for cricket. So, I my love for cricket is even stronger for the pandemic. And having reflected, like, I think it was actually, obviously it's been an awful time for a lot of people, and it's really sad, but I think I got some positive stuff from it. So if you're able to just come out of it healthy and with some loved ones around you, I think you did okay, is what I'd say to anybody who was trying to process it. And with that being said, in the UK at least, we look like we're kind of about to come through it, with vaccinations and stuff. And I'm very much looking forward to life getting back to normal, but I'll never take it for granted in the same way as I did before this.
I second all of what you said, particularly, cricket. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to start a podcast, because it kind of talking about bringing out the things that you cherish or value most in life. I was really surprised by how much cricket was right on top of my list. And it's something even like Ravichandran Ashwin, like he talked about, like the time away from cricket, it kind of cut out a lot of distraction for him and focused his love for cricket. And he realized he couldn't really do anything else, or he couldn't live without it, which is why like it's resulted in, him talking a lot about cricket with a lot of people. And I think the one thread that we all share is the one common thread that we all share is our passion for cricket and our love for cricket. And I'm just glad that we still get to watch it. We still get to share our thoughts on it, and probably get trolled in some instances for it. But Aatif, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for all the work that you do. Not just like bringing joy and laughter to so many people, but also just talking about cricket and presenting it in a light way, and for people just to focus on that and keep aside all negativity and just enjoy life, enjoy cricket.
Dude, I really appreciate that. It's my pleasure. I'm not exactly swimming for activity right now, so it's totally it's totally fine. It's been a lot of fun to meet you and your friends digitally and stuff. And yeah, man. I mean, if you've made it to the end of this podcast and you're still listening, well done. Sorry, because
you win a surprise prize.
Yeah, no, I feel really bad because I'm not very good at being fully intelligible or being concise at the moment. This is one of the things I'm missing right now is discipline. But I did enjoy it. Usually when I start to ramble, it's because I'm being less structured. It's because I'm having a good time. So this was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you again, Benny, for sharing your group of friends with me to just listen to my stories. And if you take one thing away from this, from your little chat with me, I'm just a guy who loves cricket, man. Don't worry about everything else. I'm just a guy who loves cricket, and I'll talk about it with anybody.
All right, and remember, if you are ever going to do another documentary in Lahore, don't forget to take Himanish and Nish with you.
Awesome, bro. You just bring your camcorder and a tripod, and you're on the crew. It's done.
Yep. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're ever in Delhi, kebabs are on me. And a tour of all the 7 cities of Delhi is on me as well.
Outstanding. As long as we can go to Chandni Chowk, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Last Wicket. A special thank you to Aatif for coming on the show and talking about his passion for cricket. You can follow him on Twitter at Aatif Nawaz, and do check out the Post-Match Chat YouTube channel. We'll be posting all the links on our show notes. Meanwhile, do rate and subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes. Follow us on your social media feeds, and do spread the word about the show. Once again, thank you for listening, and we hope you come back for more. From all of us here at The Last Wicket, have a great week.